That's all I got. So Malignant is a horror movie by director James Wan. The movie stars Annabelle Wallis. I don't remember her character's name. Don't ask me to Google it or IMDb it. I don't have the energy. Not for this. Like, there are movies it's like, I should take the time. This isn't one of them. Anyhow, she's getting visions of these killings. This very mysterious, brooding, almost ghostly figure is killing people. First of all, I felt the lead, Annabelle Wallis, the best part of the movie. She's probably aided and helped out in the fact that some of the acting from the actors who played the supporting characters, well, some of them. Like when the movie started out and the setup, you know, it's showing this thing that happened in the past, and the acting was so cheesy. I was like, okay, this is gonna be one of those scenarios where it's a movie within a movie, but it's not. It's actually what happened. Yeah, I know. Imagine my surprise. I was like, oh, so that they were just like, perfect. Those are the takes. And that would definitely work out if the movie felt more self-aware, like it knew what it was. But it never feels like it does. There are movies out there that totally nail the self-aware thing, and so the cheese kind of works with it. This movie doesn't have that. This movie feels like it wants to throw back to older horror movies and older horror genres, but it doesn't throw back far enough. It's not the 70s, it's not throwing back to the 80s, not throwing back to the 90s, no. Mid-2000s. This mid-2000s horror throwback. Not that the mid-2000s didn't have some standouts, you know, some fun slasher flicks in there, but it's mid... Of all the places. Like, there are some cool things that happen in this movie. Like, the last act of the movie kind of becomes an action movie, and it is stylish. You're like, oh, it's pretty sweet throwdowns happening. It also has elements from another Stephen King story. I have to be vague, because if I tell you the premise of the Stephen King story I'm thinking of, you're gonna be like, oh, I know the premise of this movie, which this movie is actually really predictable. Not too far into it, I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is what's happening and this is what's happening, and I may be off a little bit, but I get the general gist of what's happening. Maybe it's because I know of the Stephen King story it totally reminded me of that I'm being completely vague about, but I have to be vague. Like, it's kind of like Wonder Woman 1984, when I said, oh, the end of this movie, the last act reminds me of a Jim Carrey movie, because I didn't want to say, well, it reminded me of Bruce Almighty, because then you'd know what happens in the last act of the movie. You'd know it's all about wishes and all that. It's the same thing here. So this movie starts out as a ghostly feeling James Wan-ish horror movie, then it becomes a mystery movie that's not that mysterious and not that compelling, because you kind of piece it together before the cops do. And then the last act turns into more action than anything. Bloody action. Like, this movie is actually pretty bloody. Not like it's inventive. It's not like total fatality style where you're like, oh, the spine and, you know, the chest rips. None of that. But no cutaway on the stabbings to the face and the blood flying, and it's in here. But there is a point in this movie where you're gonna make this face. You're gonna go, okay. And it's unavoidable. It's undeniable. It's a cool concept, but it was just executed in the most ridiculous way possible, which is why I say this movie isn't as self-aware as it probably should have been, or at the very least doesn't come across as self-aware as it wants the audience to think or know it is. As it stands, this movie feels like 3 different concepts. Like on the roundtable discussion, they were like, okay, we can execute these movies 3 different ways. Do we want haunting movie? Do we want supernatural investigative thriller movie? Or do we just want mid-2000s horror slash bloody slash cool cheese killing with the killer in the action movie? Man, my grammar, my vocabulary, my execution, it's off today. But I kind of don't care for this one. You can have an off day if you're reviewing a movie like Malignant. It's fine. Anyhow, it's like they couldn't decide. They were like, let's force them all into one. Malignant. A movie that's ridiculous enough to not easily forget, but would probably be a better time if you're drunk. Yeah, what the fuck? All right, so Malignant, have you seen it? What did you think about it? What's your favorite horror or slasher movie from the mid-2000s? Whatever it is, whatever you think, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.